Do you suffer from debilitating migraines? You know, that throbbing pain in the front or side of your head that's so severe you're unable to work or do anything other than retreat into a dark and quiet room? Have you had them for years and just haven't found a solution? Call Dr. Elizabeth Ebersol and put an end to your debilitating migraines forever. Or go to her website at www.handmadehealth.com. That's www.handmadehealth.com.
Hello, everybody. The Balls to the Walls, episode number 7. I'm your host, Kenny Matthews. My sidekick, the great Billy Martin Jr. How are you doing, sir?
Glad to be here, Kenny.
Man, me too. And I want to say I apologize to the audience in advance. I had my energy levels a little low last week. Allergy hell. Much better today. So you'll have some laughs and some smiles today, I promise, folks, and no sneezing. Yeah, we do appreciate you listening to us, man. We appreciate if you go subscribe to us at Balls to the Walls there on our YouTube page, Friday Night Glory. Subscriptions are big for us here, and we also welcome your comments on anything that you want us to maybe discuss, or some criticisms or some props or some praise. Either way, we'd like it either way. We'd like to hear from you. We want to keep bringing you some fresh content, and we'll kind of keep you up to date on, the information in the sports world of the day. We're taping here on midweek here on this Wednesday, so we got a lot to cover. And first thing I do, I've got a surprise for Billy Martin, my partner in crime over here. I thought you may like this. This is a signed baseball from Billy Martin and Mickey Mantle from 1956, nonetheless, to the great Hall of Fame umpire, Ed Rubney. He got a foul tip in the game off of his jaw that came from underneath. He went to the hospital, and Mickey and your dad went up there and signed a baseball for him. Unfortunately, I got this because the Umpires Association didn't have a retirement program for them back in the day. So he sold this at a baseball card convention here in Dallas in 1982. I spent $26 on this thing, and I thought it was way too much money. I thought it was way too much money at the time at the Twin Rivers Hotel down there off of 75, and I believe it's Lover's Lane, I believe it was. But anyway, I thought you might get a kick. It's a little old. It's a little dated. You can see Billy's there, Martin. He's getting a little chicken scratch down here at the bottom, but I thought you might appreciate this. So I wanted to show it to you, my man.
Absolutely. So that was a great and terrible year for my father.
Yes.
Because it was his only year to go to an all-star game as a player. And then on his birthday, he and a bunch of the guys went to the Copacabana Club to celebrate, right? While they were there seeing their friend Sammy Davis Jr. perform, a bowling team started throwing racial slurs at Sammy. So Dad and the Yankees said, "Shut your effing mouth, or we're going to shut it for you." Well, needless to say, there was a little bit of an altercation, and the bowler, I think, went to the hospital. But my father was traded soon after that.
That's what I said. Your father got most of the brunt of that. Yeah, he took the hit on that.
Yeah, he did. Well, the Yankees GM at the time was trying to find an excuse to break up the Mickey, Billy, and Whitey trio.
Yes.
And who are they going to trade? The winningest pitcher in Yankee history, or the guy with more power than anybody in baseball at the time, or the 250 hitting second baseman? So they traded Dad and didn't go to the World Series that year.
No, they didn't. I believe that was the Braves. Was that the Braves or the Indians?
Then it was, excuse me. They did go in 56. They didn't go in 57.
Okay.
And it broke my father's baseball heart.
I was going to say
really,
that was in him, in the book that I read on him. He said that was the turning point for him. Was being traded away from the Yankees. He said, the only places that he loved more was the Oakland Oaks and the New York Yankees, and that, that was the key.
Well, I think that people say, why do you like the Yankees so much? I'm like, well, let's see. When he broke in 1950, they won the World Series. And then his second year in 51, they won the World Series. And in 52, they won the World Series. He had the game-winning catch. In 53, he was MVP of the World Series. Those were his first 4 years in the major leagues. He goes to the Army in 54.
So said he went to the Army. Yeah.
They don't go. Comes back mid-55. They go, but lose to Brooklyn. They win it again in 56, and then he's traded. And so you got a ball from his last great year there, and I'll talk to the Mantle boys. I'm gonna bet that ball's wow.
Yeah.
Let's say you did pretty good on. Had you put that money in the stock market, it might not have gone up as much as it has now.
You have no idea the consternation that I had as a little lad at 14 years old spending $26 on a ball, though. It was like, I came here for a strawberry rookie, not a baseball. Made the right choice for once on the collecting side, to say the least. Yes, it did. I mean, I just feel bad that Ed Runge was there for that. He's selling his memorabilia that he's had all those years because they didn't have a retirement program, at that time for the umpires. So, you hate to get it for that reason alone, but it's a cherished item from one of me. And I said, what, I got to show Billy Martin Jr. this. I said he'll get a hoot out of it.
Absolutely.
Yep.
And think how cool that was. How many of today's players you think would go visit an umpire in the hospital?
Yeah. Call Ripken Jr., but he's no longer in the league.
I mean,
yeah, that doesn't happen very often. But see, the one thing is Billy would be at the hospital hoping he's well, but 12 hours later, he may be kicking dirt in his face.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And as soon as the game's over, we're going to say, hey, sorry, man, but, you do it again tomorrow, and I'm going to kick dirt on you again. But if you want to go have a beer,
absolutely,
come on, let's go. We'll forget about it.
First one's on me.
Yeah, he was amazing at letting it go. Kenny, as soon as the game was over, as soon as he crossed that line,
it's done.
Y'all were buddies again, and it was almost unprecedented for the way he could turn it off. I mean, Kenny Kaiser, the umpire, was the first one that really pulled me aside and told me about it one day.
Mm-hmm.
He said, and Kenny he wrestled in the off season.
Wow.
WWE stuff, and he was a really big guy.
Yeah, I was about to say he's a big size guy. I was about to say he's one of the bigger guys. Him and Eric Gregg. I mean, those guys are big,
So he's explaining to me how he handles it. How do I handle a guy my size? My father was 5'10", getting in his face, screaming and yelling at him, calling him names. And he goes, I blew a call. He goes, I did blow it at first. I kind of knew it right after I did it. And your dad was all in my face. And he goes, to kind of keep myself from snapping, I sit there and kind of in my head, work it out. All I got to do is wrap him up, take him down. He's a little guy. He goes, I'm going through all that. And he goes, literally 3 hours later, I'm sitting in the hotel bar and in walks your father. And I'm thinking, oh, crap, here we go again. Because every time I see Earl Weaver, he brings up the call I blew in the 70-something World Series. And he goes, your dad comes, sits down, buys me a drink, says, hey, I heard your mom's in the hospital. How's she doing?
Wow.
Like nothing happened. And he goes, I'm waiting for, he goes, he never brought it up. And he's like, freaking love this guy, And of course, I know damn good and well tomorrow if I do it again, he's going to be right there in my face. And he goes, I actually love that about him because it locked me on better. It made me a better umpire.
Yep, true. Yep.
The more I ended up liking him, the less I wanted him in my face.
Yeah.
Because now he's my friend, damn it. And Dad went to his banquet every off season, he'd go to his fundraising banquet and went and visited his mother in the hospital. And yeah, but my God, you blow another call and I'm right there in your face.
Yes, but your dad didn't have any problems letting somebody know if they blew a call.
No.
Did not have a problem. And you know what? He didn't have any problems calling somebody out if they didn't hustle.
No, sir.
That
Absolutely
is
not.
one thing that I think the game misses a little of that now. That intensity is like you run out any and everything that's put in play. You never know. And believe me, some of these slow home run trots wouldn't be happening right now if your dad was in that dugout.
Well, one big difference in the game too, especially when he played, was when you're making $10,000 a year and you win the World Series and you get a check for $6,700. That's almost 70% of your income, right? So that meant he could sustain himself and live in New York for the duration of the year until spring training started. Otherwise, he would have to go back to California, get on the train, go across the country, work in the penicillin plant or sell cars or both,
right,
to make ends meet until spring training started. So if somebody didn't hustle, you didn't have to worry about the manager running over to yell at him. 5 of his teammates were at the top step going, "What the hell, Kenny? Come on. You got to make that play. We need that World Series money."
Yes.
And when the inmates run the asylum, it's a different deal.
I always say that, the locker room polices themselves a lot of times, and you can weed out the bad that way. And you're right. It's exactly right. Back then, those guys were, especially the Yankees, that was their birthright. They thought that was their part of their salary was the World Series winning ticket. We want the winning purse. We don't want the losing side of that. That purse is smaller. And a lot of wives and kids already had that money spent. So but I can see how that locker room was policed. I'm sure Corsetti and the crew made sure that locker room was taken care of for sure on that side. And, get those guys to buy in on platooning, the Bowers and the Woodlings. And, we can go on and on and on about that. But look, that'll be another discussion for another day. But we'll stick with baseball. Man, we've been on this topic for the last couple of weeks here, the pennant races. Wow. This time last week, looked like the Yankees were fading. Next thing you know, they're at a 7-game win streak, and Superman, as Mike, don't call me Giancarlo Stanton, is hitting everything out of sight about 500 feet. They go sweeping Fenway. They have the big win last night at Toronto. I mean, the Yankees now are sitting in that driver's seat where, if they just win 3 out of the next 5, that's going to put a lot of pressure on Boston, Toronto especially. But lo and behold, that team that traded their closer at the trading deadline out in the far northwest, Seattle, is a half game out. And we haven't been talking about them since they traded their closer. I mean, that's unbelievable to me. 11 straight over the Oakland swinging A's. That's unheard of. I mean, I don't even think the Yankees did 11 straight over the Orioles 2 years ago when they won 1 out of, I think, 17 out of 18. So, man, it's fun. It's been fun to watch, that's for sure.
No doubt. When that trade went down, there were a lot of people talking about it. And if you step back and just look at it for what is best for this team moving forward,
yes,
they made a great trade. They did. They got a nice player that's an everyday starter that has a big upside for a guy who was amazing. He was doing a great job, but has he ever done this in his career before? And what's the shortest lifespan of any position in baseball. It's closer, right? I mean, it's like being an NFL running back. I mean, but for a different reason, you know. NFL running backs because you take too many blows to the head. I mean, you know,
that's more physical.
Think about what they have to do, Kenny. I mean, you got to come in there with all the pressure, with Metallica playing and the place going crazy. And it's great when you're going good, right?
Right.
But every pitcher doesn't know what's in his arm tonight, right? So you got to have this mentality. I don't know what I got in here tonight, but I'm going to kick your ass with it. Oh, by the way, if I don't, I will tomorrow. Because think about blowing a save. You get back in that locker room and you look over at the pitcher that just went 7 2/3 and gave everything he had. And then you're looking around the rest of the team that you blew the save for.
Yeah.
And I'm sure some of them are going, hey, man, hang in there, buddy. It's okay. And some of them are saying that, but really thinking, up your. And then tomorrow night, you got to do it again.
Got to do it again.
You got to go out there again. And it's such a tough position mentally. If every baseball player, if every athlete in general had the mindset of a closer, he'd be an all-star. If he could handle that mentally, I don't care what the analytics say. I care about what's right in here.
Hey, think about how many GMs that have lost their job because they thought they were going on last year's bullpen results for the following year. I mean, you think you're here, you're locked in. I mean, you look at the Yankees alone, you know, they thought they would have had, you know, the kid Britton. They thought he was going to be their eighth inning guy. He hasn't really pitched all year. They thought Darren O'Day was going to be their 7th inning guy. He hasn't pitched for them all day. It's all these pups that have come up for them in the back end, the Loasias guys. Those guys have been able to bridge the gap for them. So you can't tell me that Cashin was thinking that in March and April this year, that those guys were going to be the guys he's relying on. He's paying top dollar for these other guys that barely pitched for him this year. So yeah, bullpen is to me the most topsy-turvy group of 7 to 8 guys that you have from year to year because you just don't know. Like you said, either you lose it in the arm or you lose it mentally, and it can just be off by just a smidge. You know, you're not talking about a big deal. Talking about just this much on the plate or off the plate in the difference of having results on the field. And, you know, so it's unreal, man. But yeah, I'm just mystified at that. I mean, I didn't know how much of a pennant race we're really going to get out of that, but to have 4 teams vying for 2 spots within 2 games of each other, to me is pretty remarkable. And let's not look too far here. The Red Sox are limping down the stretch here a little bit, you know, taking it on the chin from the Yankees this past weekend up in Fenway, and then losing to those lonely Orioles last night with Chris Sale on the mound, nonetheless. You know, You're thinking, Red Sox, it's kind of like the Yankees. When Cole pitches, you're thinking it's a win. When Sale pitches, you're thinking it's a win. So when you don't get that win, you know, that it's hard to ratchet it back up the next day and say, hey, Orioles are free swinging. They have nothing to lose here. You know, they just go out and play a ball game. Red Sox now squeezing the bat a little bit tighter. You know, it's fun.
Oh, it is. It's great to have a race because these other, you know, divisions that are locked up, you don't have that. And it's almost, you wonder, how do the guys get geeked up to play? You know, when, you know, they're looking down at their, going, hey, when can I go home? I'm tired. Their body's hurting so bad this time of year.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
People don't talk about that because,
especially when you have your rainouts. Your rainouts get made in late August and September, so you get, you know, 20 games in 21 days, whatever may be the case. You know, 12 of those may be on the road, whatever it may be. Yeah, you know, that's a physical and mental drain that I don't think any of us understand what you're going through at that point in time, and especially if you're struggling. You know, if you're not swinging the stick in September and you're just kind of riding out the stretch here, I can't imagine what that does to you mentally. You know, I really can't.
No, it's it's so hard. Even great players, and I was talking to one of my clients today about that very thing, going through his first year in pro ball. As he was drafted and this year, and that was the hardest part for him when he had his first real rough patch. He'd been going great. They were batting him in the 3-hole. Everything was off. Next thing you know, he's sitting on the bench for a week, and they were trying to let him work it out. And then he finally got it back together, got it going real good, and then rolled his ankle. Out a little bit longer. Expected to jump back in there, doing great. No, it's such a grind right here. And, not beating yourself up, just finding a way to stick confidence in there that may not even be real, but you got to get it done.
Absolutely. Well, hey, since we started these pods, we've been talking about those San Francisco Giants out in the West, and I guess this time next week we'll be talking about them waiting for the wild card winner. I guess because we waited for them to fold, we waited for them to tank, and they just won't do it. They even stretched the lead out this weekend when the Dodgers played the Diamondbacks, and they played at Colorado this weekend. They win a big game last night. They take a big hit, though, on Sunday with Brandon Belt having a fractured thumb. I think that's going to be huge for them going forward. I mean, we talked about Duran, those guys last week, but anytime you miss somebody that's got 28 bombs in the middle of that lineup and is, above average defender, a leader in that clubhouse, that's, it's going to be tough for them to overcome. But, I mean, they're sitting up top of the NL West with a 2-game lead over the Dodgers with 5 to go.
Well, and you know what? They'll stick Darren Ruff in there, and they might not miss that darn. I mean, they're going to miss that big bat.
Sure.
That they could bring off the bench like they could have with Ruff. But I don't know. They've done such a good job this year. I mean, if Farhad Zaidi doesn't get executive of the year, or Gabe Kapler doesn't get manager of the year, or both,
Posey comeback player of the year. I mean, here's a guy that sat out for COVID last year. He hasn't swung a stick in 2 years before he starts his season, and he acts like he's 24-year-old Posey. It's unreal what they've done over there. But meanwhile, you got Mad Max sitting over there for the Dodgers and their crew sitting going, well, you know what? We'll roll our chances with our 4 starters, in a 5-game set, and you better scratch, but we'll probably score 3 and we can win. Might score 2 and still could win. So there's no pressure on the Dodger offense, I don't think, when you have that kind of starting rotation, because those guys, and in most of those cases, how it is now. It seems in the playoffs, starters are going about 4 innings. You're still going to have Max go 6, or 7. You're still going to have, Bueller, if he's pitching, go 5 or 6 innings. So you're not going to tax that bullpen, which I think might be the soft spot for the Dodgers. It is their bullpen. So you're not going to tax it like the other teams are going to do. They're going to be elated if you get 4 innings and they give up 1 run from a starter. They're going to go bring guys out of the pen, and say, hey, pat you on the back. You're doing a great job. Dodgers got to, they can limp in their starters and still be good. So,
yep. Well, come on, one of their best ones is not even allowed to play right now, so and still getting paid. But what they do at the trade deadline, they go get Max Scherzer and Trey Turner. Oh, okay, and they're still behind the Dodgers. I mean, but behind the Giants. It's amazing to me. Like we said last week, other than Chris Bryant, I guess I'd take him over Justin Turner.
Yeah.
But even that's not a huge, but he's younger, so I do that going forward. I don't know that I'd trade a player for either one, except for that maybe 1-game scenario.
Yep.
And I I look forward to seeing. I have a feeling the playoffs are going to be as good as this whole AL East.
I think
Right.
so too. I mean, there's not really a dominant team to me per se out there that you can just say unequivocally they're the favorite, this year. So, we have less playoff teams than we had last year, which unfortunately I loved when we had like 8 games on that first day last year, the playoffs, but maybe with the new collective bargaining agreement, we can get back to that. But I'm really looking forward to the fall classic because we're gonna have people in the stands. And for me, there's not much better. Hockey playoffs and baseball playoffs are the two that are just the atmosphere is ratcheted up so much more than the regular season is. And, I'm really looking forward to that. Sure.
Well, I would love to be able to figure out why that is. I mean, I know an accountant who only handles baseball and hockey players. And I asked him one day, I said, why? Why just baseball and hockey? Why not basketball and football guys? And he said, Billy, because they're nicer guys. And I looked at him funny. He goes, they get humbled in the minor leagues. Football and basketball players go from being college superstars, where they could get on the cover of Sports Illustrated while in college, just to the NFL and NBA.
Yeah.
Baseball and hockey players, the only time they get their picture on Sports Illustrated is if they win the whole thing and they got the big dog pile picture, right? And then they go ride on buses for 3 or 4 years and get humbled and realize how lucky they are by the time they make it. He goes, that's why I just would rather work with nicer guys.
And they have a much more appreciation of money. I mean, for most part, yeah, your top end guys, yes, they're getting paid, but 70% of those guys, man, they're living paycheck to paycheck. So when they get there, they understand the value of money. They know what it is to sweat an electricity bill, or sweat, having gas money. Where most of your NFL players, like you said, they're leaving from college, they're getting some signing bonus money, whatever may be the case, they're gone. Yeah, that's an excellent, excellent, excellent point. I never really thought about that, but it's true.
I never had either. And and it makes sense. I talked to a friend of mine who used to be an NFL agent for years and actually represented Lawrence Taylor at one time. And he used to have the contract money put into an annuity to pay it out an extra 10 years longer so that the guys couldn't spend it.
Right. Makes sense.
Because of that, like you're talking about, because all of a sudden at that young age, here's all this money and they think it's just going to keep coming in forever.
Yeah.
And next thing you know, they can't play anymore. They don't have the guaranteed contracts.
Nope.
And it was pretty neat that he did that. That guy's,
they don't get that 5th year of service. They don't have a retirement program either. So, You're starting from scratch. And, and the average, what they say, the average NFL player is about 2.5 years or something of that nature, So, a lot of guys are not getting that 5 years to get, vested into their NFL pension plan. So it's huge. It's huge to get to that. Yeah, it is. Well, hey, I'll move on to another topic here. And this is one that I know you probably got to watch a little bit, but boy, what about that Ryder Cup this past weekend? Woo! As the United States of America with the big 19-9 win over the Euros this weekend, we were set up for kind of an ass whooping. Had 8 of the top 10 players ranked in. You could tell that there was a little enthusiasm from the younger USA team. And I think that was the key to me, was that you had the enthusiasm of guys not being there before, and they're at the top of their game also, and they're tired of getting their butts whipped. Now, we'll say this, the Euros kind of at the disadvantage of not being able to really travel any of their fans over here this year because of COVID. Some of the guys I know that turned it down because of COVID issues and traffic. So, I want to put that, outlier there with it. But, besides Sergio Garcia, the United States absolutely took it to them. I think it's the first win since 2016. It's the 4th win just in the last 13 against them. So they've been dominant.
First time back to back that the U.S. has won since 79 and 83.
Wow. So that's Jack
And-
Nicklaus.
Yeah, and this was the largest margin of victory in Ryder Cup history since they started that 28-point format thing.
Right.
In history.
It-
I mean, and it's the young guy. I mean,
Yes.
what's that say for the Ryder Cup future? I mean, come on.
And I was talking to a buddy of mine. I was thinking it's going to be really interesting what course they pick in Rome, in 2 years, in 2 years from now, because we had such long hitters. We're going to go to a putt course and somewhere in Rome, so we can take that advantage from our long hitters going there. Because, in essence, that's really what won it. We're young and we're hitting. You had a 417-yard drive. I couldn't see it after the 17th yard. But I can't imagine 400 more yards added to it on that. That's unreal. But I just love the spunk that we had. And hey, kudos to Tiger and them. I thought they pulled the right strings, throughout the weekend too. That kind of gets I think the coach is a little bit more valued in the Ryder Cup because of the format that's there. You can get the strengths and weaknesses of the players there. And, heck, it can be like the Euros. Rory doesn't play on Saturday. You have to make those tough calls sometimes saying, hey, you're not getting it done. We're going to have somebody else come in your place. So, it was really exciting just to see them finally be able to kind of get that monkey off the back, like you said, back-to-back Ryder Cup titles here.
Well, and having two rookies go undefeated, that's kind of cool.
Yeah. And we waited and we waited and we waited, and DeChambeau kept finally shook the hands, hugged it out. Can we kiss this little resentment thing between those two away? I guess with the United States flag, I guess all things can go away, at least for a weekend. And I was nice to see. I guess we kind of had to make up a little drama because we weren't getting drama on the scoreboard at all at that point. So. But that was great. That was great. It really was. So, like I said, I'm looking forward to Rome. That's going to be fun when they do that in a couple of years to see how it goes, because I'd like to see what the Euro strategy would be. Will they try to get a little younger themselves? We think of Sergio as a kid. Sergio's not a kid anymore. He's not. But he was their best player probably this weekend. I think he was 3-1, I believe, or something of that nature. He's still a great Ryder Cup player. So you need to have that veteran experience, with the younger players, But
Absolutely.
But yeah, I'm really looking forward to that, man. That was a great format. But yes, us US of A, we got it 2 times in a row. Let's start swinging the pendulum our way now, and let's go win on their soil in 2 years. I'd like to talk a little football here, and also I want to say, hey, please, we can get you guys to subscribe to us. It doesn't cost you a thing. Just go to our YouTube, Balls on the Wall, subscribe, fill in your information. It'll let you know when we're going to have when our podcast will be coming out, and you go to FridayNightGlory.com also and do it that way. But we appreciate that. More subscribers, the more we can bring to you guys. We really appreciate that. And let's talk a little football, and I guess we should start with the Monday night game. Boy, it sounded like that atmosphere sounded like a little Texas Stadium-esque a little bit this past Monday. It sounded like we had a lot of Cowboy fans, but we did still have a lot of Eagle fans there. But it did sound like we had more of the Cowboy venom this time as opposed to years in the past. And they played a solid football game too.
Look, as a Cowboy fan, I had no idea we were really this good. Obviously, game number 1, toe-to-toe with the Super Bowl champs. That was very enlightening. But Monday night was a butt kicking.
Yeah.
There was never no. And we're talking about a team that, look, man, Hurt can play. They got a good quarterback. They've got a good, solid team. And Cowboys just put it flat on them. There was never there was never any doubt in that game in my mind at all. And I did not expect that.
No. And when was the last time that somebody went on an 80-yard drive and was able to overcome 2 holding calls on it too? I mean, that's just, that tells you what kind of butt whooping they were putting on. They couldn't get off the field. They really couldn't. And now I know they came in beat up a little bit on their defensive line. I know they came in a little beat up on their offensive line coming in. But, they made Hurts look very, very – I'm not even going to say mediocre because mediocre says you're average. And that was an average play at quarterback the other night. That was not at all. And they only ran the football, I think, 12 times or 13 times. You can't win football games in the National Football League running just 13 times anymore. You're asking for your quarterback to get killed, by that point in time. And so, but they controlled every aspect of the game, and kudos to Dan Quinn. We didn't really know if Dan Quinn, the defensive coordinator, was going to come in here and make that much of a difference here in such a short period of time. Maybe the Cowboys were just so bad last year. We're actually just seeing some stops, and it's making us, making people feel good about that. I'm not so sure, but you got to give them credit for that.
Oh yeah, look at our pass rush.
Yeah,
we got pass rush yesterday. How many times were they coming from the backside, just making plays?
And your best pass rusher is not even on the field. He's recovering from surgery. So, you look down the road as that's a trading deadline addition almost, because you're going to get your best pass player coming back during the middle of the season where he doesn't have half the season of wear and tear on him.
Except for one thing. Except you don't have to give up anybody to get him.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, you're not trading any commodities, draft picks, and players. No. You're just welcoming him. And as long as you keep running, it doesn't force him to try to get on the field too soon. So maybe, he could say, all right, well, I could have stretched it this week, but we, got a 2 or 3 game lead in division. Let me go on and give it another week to make sure I can come out and not, because how many times guys come back early and they end up re-injuring themselves? It happens all the time, especially in football, because there's not that many games. So they really push the envelope in football. Used to be 16, but 17 games now. And I'm like, well, hey, man, I got to play. So, but yes, that was a thorough mismatch beat down, curb stomp, whatever, housed, whatever you want to call it. And it wasn't that close at all. I said that line, that easily could have been 55 points on them the other night. And, but yes, they look good, but they got it. That should be interesting. Rams come to town here. They're flying high. Big win that they had this past Sunday over Tom Brady and, defending champs at their place. So, Matthew Stafford comes back home. Hey, it's a lot of storylines there.
Yeah. No, it's this next week should be real interesting from so many fronts, and we're gonna obviously know what's going on in baseball. I can't wait for the playoffs this year.
Yeah,
can't say it enough. And I'm sure I mean that for every sport, but right now I can smell the baseball playoffs, so it's hard for me to even focus on anything else.
It's a great game. It's one of the best around. I know it's losing popularity, but I know our generation appreciates it for what it is. I don't miss any playoff baseball. And I would be remiss not to bring this up. I think the Cardinals lost in August was the last time they played. They lost the game. The St. Louis Cardinals have won 17 straight games. That is an NL record now. They took the 51 Giants record away with the win last night to clinch the wild card spot last night. I didn't realize that, but, and when I went back and started thinking about it, I was like, well, yeah, the Giants won like 37 out of 10 games down the stretch at 51. So, yeah, they had a 16-game winning streak there. That's unbelievable to me. 17 straight games. You basically 3 weeks of the month you didn't lose. That's hard to do.
Oh, it's nuts. And how far are they going to carry that?
Did you peak too soon?
Right now, this time of year, carry that into the postseason. I mean, that's the confidence you want everybody walking up to the plate with, everybody getting on the mound with.
And that's what a 100-win Dodger or Giant team will have in the one-game playoff. So you're going to win 100 games and get somebody smoking hot that can win in a one-game playoff. I mean, I always think of this scenario. What if Ariana hits a 3-run homer in the first and they win 3-2? You're going to say 103 wins season for the Dodgers or the Giants is gone in 9 innings. Nobody's going to remember that. It's unfair to me.
The Yankees are the closest team in the league with 7. You know, I mean, it drops down from there to 4.
Yeah, and the way they won some of those games over the weekend, coming from behind, they were down 8 to the Brewers. I think the Reds was something 8-0 or 8-1, and I'm like, are you kidding me? They won. It's like, and Wainwright's pitching like it's 2007 again. I mean, that's speaking of franchises. St. Louis Cardinals got it right too. That's a modeled franchise. That's a guy that's a franchise that's always built within. They've always had the steady, fan base. They don't overspend. Most of the times, when their players get to be too expensive, they let go. Albeit Albert Pujols turned out to be the perfect move for them at the time. They always seem to be kind of, retooling. I mean, I'm thinking about Colton Wong for the Brewers. I mean, he was a mainstay for the Cardinals for the last 6-7 years during their time doing that. That's no problem. We got another guy. He'll fill in for you. We're good. It's been sound. The Bush family, they got it right. They got it right.
No, they've got such a good system. As an agent, it's one of those organizations you want to draft your guys. Absolutely. Because they're going to get a shot. They're going to get a chance to get up and play. And, it's like it's funny because for some reason, we don't consider them thrifty like we call Tampa. For some reason, it's just, that's how St. Louis does it. But they both win. They're both almost always in the postseason talks, and Cardinals just been doing it a little longer.
And most people don't know that they've won the second most World Series championships. They don't realize that. They don't realize that. I mean, you talk to them, they always you hear Dodgers, Yankees. No, it's your Cardinals that are firmly entrenched in second place in World Series rings. So it's a wonderful franchise that they've built over there. And just the tradition alone. I mean, I didn't get to go to the old Busch Stadium, unfortunately. I've been to the new one. I wish now I would have been able to go there and hear that atmosphere there, because I know watching the World Series in '85 and that was so great watching that series with the Royals and just hearing that. I would have loved to have had that atmosphere, but man, that new ballpark, the new Busch Stadium is all right though. It's not a consolation prize.
No, and walk out of that stadium afterwards, and all the sports bars around there are Cardinal bars, and they're just Cardinal jerseys everywhere you look.
Sea of red.
Yeah, it's pretty neat. It's a pretty neat experience to go. And they're such a class organization.
Absolutely.
I've even gone there to see other clients who were starting against them, the starting pitcher for the other team. He still treated me like a professional and let me put my bags in their offices because I just had hopped off a plane and got on the train, and just first class. I mean, the Cardinals are one of those organizations. Matter of fact, if anybody over the age of 65 or 70, you can almost, any old baseball fan, you can almost count on them being a Cardinals or Yankees fan, because back then, those were the only 2 games you could get on the radio.
Yeah.
And believe it or not, my mother's mother was a Yankee fan. Kind of ironic that she married a Yankee years later. And her mother would load my mother and her sisters up in the family truckster in their station wagon, and they drive the bluffs of Nebraska until they got the game in good. And she would literally pull off the side of the highway and listen to the game on the radio. And that was a regular thing.
I can remember as a little kid, we used to be able to get the Cardinal games and hearing Buck. I could get it very little by KRD FM. And then, and I would move it over, and I'd just turn the AM button, and boom, I could barely hear it. But I'm like, wow, they're all the way in St. Louis. I thought they were in the moon somewhere, but my dad's like, just in St. Louis, son. I'm like, but it's unbelievable that signal that they had, and I think that's another reason why they were so popular, because that was the strongest radio signal in America at that time. And it's, like you said, that whole organization embroiders what the Midwest is all about. Nice, friendly folks, treat you with respect. We always have a few bad apples, but for the majority, you go to a St. Louis Cardinal game, it's an event, and you're going to have fun, and you're going to get treated as, a guest.
Yeah, and they're the kind of fans that will clap for the other team that has a no-hitter going or something impressive because they have that kind of class.
Yes, they do. Well, man, Billy, it's always been a pleasure. I look forward to this every week, man. I enjoy it, man. Get to talk baseball, get to talk a little football, and we got to talk a little golf today, man. We appreciate you guys listening to us, and please subscribe to us on YouTube, please. At Balls on the Walls, please. And you catch us on Facebook. We're there also, and FridayNightGlory.com. And like I said, we'd love your comments and any of your thoughts, suggestions, any of that. Please let us know on that. We greatly would appreciate that. And we'll give you a shout out if we get a good one from you. We'll give you a shout out on the podcast. See, that way too. Make you famous a little bit, huh? Anyway, we do appreciate it. Billy, man, have a wonderful week. I will see you next week. We're out of here. Appreciate you guys.